Hi, this is Pat Moorhan. We are back at the 6.5 Summit, day one, talking about pretty much my favorite topic if you read any of our research, and that is the hybrid multi-cloud. It's exciting, it's hot, and quite frankly, it's what enterprises want. And I'm really pleased to have Caitlin from Dell Technologies here. How are you?
I'm awesome. My favorite topic as well.
How about that?
I know.
It's great. We were at Dell Tech World a couple of weeks ago, and there was a lot of discussion about multi-cloud by design. I mean, by the way, that makes perfect sense. But I thought maybe you can explain that. Where did it come from? How are your customers asking for it? And how did you arrive at it?
It started with our customers. And
There we
customers,
go.
of course, don't walk in saying this, but kind of
Yeah.
the sentiment of the conversations was I have my hyperscaler partners in most cases of choice. I mean, a primary, a secondary, maybe I acquired a company, so I have another one.
Right.
And then I have on-prem vendors, which I've somewhat standardized on, but it almost felt more like multi-contract, right? And
Right.
it kind of evolved into this concept of I've ended up in multi-cloud, but it was by default. I
Right.
didn't really design them to work
Maybe
together.
accidental.
Maybe we tripped into it a little bit.
Right.
And obviously, like everything else in the past 3 years, people have taken a step back and said, maybe there's a better way. How do you make these work together? How do you actually simplify that? And that's really the idea of what is multi-cloud by design.
So I talk to a Fortune 500 enterprise weekly, maybe every other week, and literally there is not a single one that doesn't have more than one IaaS provider. And when I've talked about what the future looks like, but maybe acquisitions, maybe mergers, maybe having sovereign clouds. I mean, it is a multi-cloud world. I'm there. I've been there, and I'm glad to see Dell step up to the plate. And the way that these enterprises have been working with it is they have separate dev, sec, ops, networking. The full stack team, app teams per cloud. And what that's created is an incredible amount of complexity, right? So enter Dell, right? And again, this is not new to Dell. You have been talking multi-cloud for a while, but you are putting a lot of wood behind solutions to help solve that complexity. Can you talk about how you're solving this complexity for enterprises?
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head, which is that multi-cloud by definition means multi-vendor, which means different operating models, which means different skill sets. And then what we see people doing is exactly that. They have to set up teams not only for an on-premise state, but for multiple different public clouds, which means they have to have skills across all of those areas. And there's skills gaps everywhere in every industry, and certainly in IT. So you have just a skills challenge to be able to support all those different operating models. You have different silos for your data, not to mention the fact that that inefficiency means your developers aren't as productive as you
Right.
need to. And that's really what we were trying to solve. There's so many people and operational challenges is how do you simplify that? But also simplify it in a way that still allows you to have choice. You want to be able to have that flexibility. We know for years, even when
Right.
before the public cloud, it's always been multi-vendor. That's not a new strategy. What's
Right.
different is now it's multi-vendor, but it's spread, right? The locations, the security is more challenging than ever. So you need the choice, but you also can't deal with that level of complexity. You quite literally financially cannot
Right.
deal with that level of complexity. So it's really simplifying that, and simplifying that means a variety of different things. And that's a lot of the announcements that we made a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it is interesting. If I look at, I've been in tech for over 30 years. If I look at, mainframe to mini client server, all the different ways you can put this, and then you layer on the edge, on-prem, public cloud, the choices are actually growing in where it can be. And as I said before, the future will be even more complex. So putting some standards, putting process, and putting tools around to be able to wrangle that is of immense value. And to do this, it takes a village, right? And in fact, at Dell Tech World a few weeks back, you did make some announcements with some partners that I'm gonna give you credit. I track a lot of companies that say that they're multi-cloud, and you actually put other logos on when other companies don't. That's a pet peeve of mine, and this is a compliment that you actually put other companies, your partners in your ecosystem, on the slide with you. Can you talk about some of your announcements?
And it was more than just the names on the slides. There's a little bit of work that went into that. So
It is. I'm an analyst. I can live in slide world.
I for 15 years I lived in slide world too. Now we've been as someone who lives day to day working with these partners, it is incredibly powerful and exciting to see those on the slide. But more importantly, it's what our customers are asking for. The world that we've been living in is that you do have these different vendors. And although obviously Dell and VMware have worked really closely together,
Yes.
VxRail has been incredibly successful being able to partner that way. We hadn't necessarily done that as an industry in general.
Right.
And that's really the paradigm shift that we're really pushing for. And the really fun part is over the last 6 to 9 months, working with all these partners is they see it too. This doesn't work unless both of us come to the table and try to solve that same problem for our customer, and we both understand what we each can bring. Now they're each a little bit different, right? You have VMware continuing to lead virtualization. You have Red Hat leading for Kubernetes on-prem. And then you have Microsoft leading from hybrid cloud. Incredibly powerful. And there's some challenges involved with working with 3 partners at the same time, but we're doing it for one really important reason. Our customers need it. They're asking for it.
Exactly. I view this as a maturation. Okay. By my calendar, the cloud started in 2004 with a queuing service. Okay. And then moved to a storage service about 2 years later. And there wasn't even this notion. I mean, the industry tried to have a private cloud. And that private cloud, those are still operating at telcos and at retail. But this notion, though, of control plane, the ability to go across and getting the cooperation from the other side, right? Because you have to connect with something, okay? And what I like is the maturation of the industry that companies need each other, who typically wouldn't talk to each other. And there's this realization too with, 90% of spend is still on-prem. And that hasn't changed for a long time. And there's a reason. So I'm great. We have a teenager now, okay, that's 19 years old, called the cloud. Doesn't know everything, isn't perfect, still making a lot of mistakes, but I'm glad to see where we are. What is your strategy to wrangle this, right? What's your starting point, your solidifying point? I think you talked about this at Dell Tech World.
Yeah, there's really 3 components. Make it really simple. Part 1 is what we call ground to cloud. So specifically, how do we take that Dell software that traditionally we've been deploying in purpose-built appliances in people's data centers, take that software and bring it into the public cloud? We started with data protection. We've been doing that for years. Now we're doing that with storage. We have our new Apex storage for public cloud, really enabling that workload flexibility that customers have been looking for. Ultimately, customers are finding that those native storage services in the public cloud just can't provide what you get on-prem: resilience, performance, that scalability. And that's what we're doing in that ground to cloud. But that's just part 1.
Right.
There's always 3. I was in marketing for a long time.
Listen, I like 3. Simple too. So, and I think customers like simple just for education. Not that it's perfectly easy to implement, but they have to start somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And you have to start where they are. And some people, that's where they are. Now, on the flip side, we have what we now call our cloud to ground strategy. So pretty simply, kind of the opposite. How do we take not just cloud operating models? That's something we've been talking about as an industry for a long time, but actually the cloud operating environments themselves. This is the partnerships with VMware, with Microsoft, with Red Hat, to not only bring those operating systems on-prem, because obviously you can do that today, but do it in a way that it is first horizontally optimized for simplicity. Same software-defined storage, same compute platforms, same automated management orchestration, but then tightly vertically integrated into each one of those stacks. It is truly the easy button for each one of those. That wasn't enough because you need 3, but also you need the right experience for all of that. And I think I really like what our marketing team came up with for Dell Tech World, which is this concept of air traffic control. How do you simplify that? And the nerdy way we all talk about it is the control plane, right? What is the SaaS-based control plane experience for that? How do you really simplify that? Because you really need that fleet operations to go with it as well. And that's the new Apex Navigator that we introduced.
By the way, I like cloud to ground. I like that so much. I wish I had invented that myself. My background, is product management and product marketing. So I admire the threes in simplification. Not that it's simple technology. In fact, most things that accomplish a lot are very complex underneath. And the challenge is that third element, which is that experience part, right? Which is making it, literally the best of why they signed up for the public cloud. So, good stuff here. So, this is a journey for sure, right? I talked about cloud being 19 years old and its stage. It will grow. It will go things. What are you thinking about in terms of the future? What's on your mind? What do you think is going to be on your customer's mind as they get on this journey?
Turns out the public cloud and my career are about the same age. So that works out well. Maybe it was always meant to be. I think we're in a really unique position as Dell. We're honored to be in that position because our customers are coming to us, our partners are coming to us, and they see this fundamental challenge. At the same time, we're in a new space. We are in uncharted waters. The breadth of what we are doing, the depth of what we're trying to accomplish, the amount of different partners we're working with. So what we know is ahead is to get these initial offers in market and listen to our customers.
Right.
I think if I'm going to make a kind of a couple areas that I see growing a lot, not to use too many buzzwords, but I think accelerating DevOps adoption and getting our customers along that curve.
Right.
There's so few that are in the maturity that they need to be. And at the same time, part of that is using more AI having more intelligence built into some of these things. How can Navigator become smarter over time?
Right.
How can these cloud platforms get even smarter over time so that you really start bringing that whole thing together and bring that to that next level? Ultimately, the fewer resources you can use to have to stand up and manage day to day your infrastructure, the more you can invest in other things. And that's ultimately what we're trying to enable our customers to do. And as you said, that level of simplification is highly complex on the back end. That's what we're trying to take on. That's our burden.
How are you looking at the, let's say, market evolution of this? You talked a little about CI/CD and developers. Is there any difference in how you see the overall market shaping up here? I mean, is it going to be a land of fabrics, right? Or a hybrid multi-cloud, or something different? More players, less players.
I think what we're hearing from customers is a couple things. How do you have fewer players but make the right bets on those players? I know it's not going to be a set of one. It's not going to be a set of 25. It's going to be somewhere in between. But we also know that customers, even though they can do certain things, they're no longer willing to or wanting to invest their time in that. So I think you're going to see more of a standardization of who you're working with on-prem, but not thinking of on-premise distinct from your public cloud,
Right.
and really making the bets about where you can make those things work together. Otherwise, I think customers are really asking us to come together for them and really bring that next level of simplicity. And how do we help their data centers and their strategies evolve? Because ultimately, it's cloud optimization. It's really taking a step back and truly putting workloads where they belong. I think the industry is generally stepping back and really looking at where that's going to end up.
Yeah, I agree, by the way. And it really is a natural market evolution. When new technologies, new capabilities start, people really enjoy the options. Okay. And then in areas like security, too many options, it gets burdensome to make it all come together. And you find that you're spending more time making all the different pieces to come together, and you're on the three back revs, and you're not even getting, quote unquote, a best of breed experience. So I agree with that evolution. By the way, usually it's not the mutual admiration club here of agreement, but Dell Technologies, Multicloud, your strategy and the way you're rolling it out is something that I had talked about probably a decade ago, and I'm glad to see this is the way that it's ending up. And definitely, not a public cloud denier, being a supplier to the public cloud for years, but it's just natural. It's what customers want.
It's
right?
What customers want.
And Dell, typically, if there's one guiding star from in and around Dell since its existence, is literally listening to your customers, and acting behind that. Of course, early signals to get ahead of it, because if you're always building what they're asking for, you're always going to be 3 years late. But it really is. I've seen historically, it's kind of a hallmark of Dell.
Yeah, it's listening to our customers and bringing in the right partners, and sometimes bringing them along on that journey.
Exactly. Kayla, I want to thank you for being part of day one of the 6.5 Summit uh, and talking about literally my favorite topic, which is the hybrid multi-cloud. I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you having me. I'm highly biased, but I agree with you.
Good. Let's do this again.
Yes, absolutely.
Appreciate that. This is Pat Moorhead signing off for the 6.5 Summit in this segment with Caitlin from Dell, who loves multi-cloud too. So it's a perfect combination. Hope you'll stick around for more day one content. And also we have day two and obviously day three. Thanks and take care.